All right, so it's a beautiful but chilly day here at Gray Whale Cove. Thinking of making something of the scene behind me. I'm mostly attracted to the silhouette of the tree to the left. So obviously I'll be including that to create a strong foreground presence. And then I'm going to include the distant point, which is right out here. But I may make it slightly bigger than I'm seeing it, just so that it's a more prominent focal point. I'll be painting over an old 12 by 16 inch painting, and I'm using my usual limited palette of colors. I'm starting with a mixture of burnt sienna, titanium white, and a bit of cadmium yellow medium. I'll often use this mixture when painting over an old panel. As you guys know, I like to have little bits of burnt sienna showing through in the finished painting. But when painting over an old panel, the burnt sienna doesn't really show up unless I add some titanium white to make the paint a little bit more opaque. When painting on a white canvas or panel, the thinned burnt sienna creates a nice bright orange color, so I'm trying to simulate that effect. I've got a dark mixture here of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna blocking in this tree silhouette here. And I've got the panel in full light, which is not ideal, but it's okay at this point in the painting process. Once the painting is blocked in, I will either turn the easel or move the easel so that the panel is in shade. But to be honest, right now I'm enjoying the warmth of the sun. When I first started painting, I experimented using an umbrella, but it's just too windy in the locations that I paint. So often it would drag my easel over when there was a strong gust. And now I find I just don't need the umbrella. I can get the colors and values that I want. Even if I have to keep the panel in full sun throughout the whole painting. There's some cypress right along the cliff here. And there's bits of another cypress right here. I'm sketching in these distant rocks. And I realize it's difficult to follow what's going on here when painting over an old painting. But I do really like the effects that I get from being slightly out of control. And there's often little bits of the old painting that show through that add character to the finished product as well. So there's the shape of the land, there's the tree, and there's more land over here. All right, for the sky, I'm using a mixture of ultramarine blue, titanium white, and phthalo blue. And I've got to decide where I want the horizon. I don't want it too high, but in reality, it's actually up here. I'm going to lower it a little bit and maybe add some clouds or some sort of light in the sky. We'll see. Now I've got a mixture of titanium white and ultramarine blue, mapping out some shadows on the white water. And there's a little bit of beach visible here, so I'll leave that unpainted. For the water, I'm going with a mixture of titanium white, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and a bit of cadmium yellow medium. And there's a whitewater pattern in here, but off in the distance. It's mostly sort of a blue-greenish color. I will be adding variety to these colors, obviously, just trying to get the composition established. For the whitewater pattern, I'm using titanium white with a touch of ultramarine blue. And There's some waves out here. The foreground here is in shadow, so I'm using a mixture of ultramarine blue, titanium white, and burnt sienna. And I'm using a number 6 natural bristle flat. So there's the scrub in. I have moved my easel into the shade, just looking at the composition here, and I feel like the slope of this land may be a bit too dramatic. I'd like to include more of this tree, so I may just bring down this line a little bit. I don't want to eliminate this slope altogether. Maybe I'll have the tree trunk come down like this. And something like that. Now that I've got an idea of where I want the tree, I'm refining the edges using a dark mixture here. I do think that having more of the tree trunk visible is working. I still maintain this slope here, which I also like. I'm doing the same with the cliffs here, just refining the shapes. This whole cliff is in shadow, but I am going to lighten the value and lessen the contrast in order to create some atmospheric perspective to push it off into the distance. Let's see, this needs to come down a little bit more. Going into these cypress here with some ultramarine blue for the shadow side of the plant, and adding some dark bits to this cypress. Now I am going over the distant cliffs with a warm gray, and I'm kind of carving out the shape of the tree using the negative space to define the positive shape of the tree. And I've switched over to a number 4 synthetic flat, which allows a little bit more control, which is handy since these shapes are so small. There's a bit of sand visible down on the beach, so I'm including that. And I think I'm going to change the shape of the whitewater here. I've completely lost the light, so I'm going by memory. Actually, I think I want the shadow to be cast onto the beach. All right, stepping back from the painting about 10 feet, just looking at the overall design, I feel like I want either a cloud bank or some distant land out here. I've got an ultramarine blue mix. Just experimenting with a shape along the horizon. And I think I like that. Adding some reddish orange bits to the trees. Much of this will get painted over, but I do want to have those warm bits in there because there's quite a bit of reflected light in the branches and on the trunks here, and so I want to get some warmth in there to create some luminosity, hopefully. I'm further lightening these cliffs because I wasn't getting enough separation from the tree, and I think what I'll do is keep the bottom portion of the cliffs dark and the upper portions of the cliffs lighter so I can define these branches. All right, so I step back and I notice that the water was too dark, so I'm always comparing values, and so I want this darker water to be darker than the white water but lighter than these cliffs. Going back into the sky with thicker paint, and to boost the saturation a little bit, using the number 4 synthetic flat to carve out some branches here. All right, so here is what I finished up with. This painting took about 2 hours to complete. It was finished on site. My goals with this painting were same as usual, to have a nice composition and a convincing feeling of light. As I mentioned while I was painting it, I took advantage of the fact that the sun came out for a bit, so I was able to establish these shadows here, then lost the sun again. But I was able to remember the colors, in particular the color of the water, keeping it sort of a blue-green. Once the clouds rolled back in, the ocean turned more of a purple color, but by keeping the blue-greens in there, it does create the sunlight effect. It would have been nice to paint this subject on a larger panel or canvas. It was really difficult getting the effect that I wanted in the tree here, just because the shapes are so small. But this was a nice experiment, and actually I'm pleased with the results. I think that the composition works. You know, again, I'm sort of expanding on a compositional approach that I've been exploring lately, which is to have a prominent foreground and then something in the distance. In this case, you've got this point here, but then also distant land out here. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's a Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated. If you got something out of this video and Patreon's not your thing, I've also put a PayPal tip jar down below, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.